be a boys' home. So that's where we are. It's a campus that needed a lot of updates and repairs, and that's why he started coming here in the winters to do that.
It's time for us to begin. Since Brent is not here, I'm the host and I'm also the piano player today. So if you all would mute yourselves so that we don't get feedback and that kind of thing, I have some gathering music and then we'll proceed. We've heard a few updates on people in the meeting and during our informal conversation, but we might mention them again because various people have come in at different times. Brent is not with us today. He was to have been on a trip, but due to illness on his part and also one of his sisters, that has been postponed. He has walking pneumonia and is home trying to recuperate from that. So we might keep him in our thoughts and prayers. Stan, you want to tell us about Sue? You had mentioned her earlier, and we need to keep her in our prayers as well.
As soon as I unmute myself. Uh-oh. Am I still with you?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I don't know what I did, but if you can hear me. Nancy and I spoke with Sue Egan yesterday over the phone, and she is in quite a bit of discomfort. And they have actually given her a back brace, and she said that it helps some, but they're waiting on a time to get her in so they can do the balloon, whatever it's called. And I think it's in her lower back. But she's good spirits, but she's definitely in some discomfort.
Are there other joys and concerns to share?
Was Sue at home or was she?
Yes, she was at home.
Okay.
I was on mute. I'm sure we all are keeping those people in California in our prayers, but it just is unbelievable what's going on out there.
Well, let's enter a period. Oh, I'm sorry, Paul, were you getting ready to speak?
Yeah, I just want to, in the poems, I want to share a joy, which is that my children are both doing really well, which was a concern. And I'm so happy to get reports that they're doing so well. And I'm very pleased about their progress, reports and their activities that they're engaged in, including the same style of Kung Fu that I do. They have a children's program.
Well, let's center it down for a few moments of open worship and remember these joys and concerns as we do that. Sylvia is our worship leader today, so she will speak out of the silence as she feels led.
Well, good morning, friends. I am speaking to you from the western side of Belize, near the Guatemalan border. This is a place where Dan and his wife began coming about 22 years ago. During their winter months, he came here to the deaf school, a Mennonite-sponsored deaf school, to volunteer to do things like put new roofs on buildings or do repairs or build stairways or various other projects. The first year I came with him 3 years ago, he repaired all the playground equipment, new teeter-totters and swings and so forth. And this is something that he enjoys. He was like a child riding on the airplane first time when we came last Thursday here. He was so excited to get back to these people and in this situation. We worship in 8 different Mennonite churches that are established here as part of the colony. The colony Mennonite community established the town of Spanish Lookout. That's what it's called. And there are lots of Hispanic people who work in there, but they're not allowed to live there. So the Mennonite community has also established several mission schools to educate the Hispanic population around here, much of who are Mayan, some are Garifuna. Belize has a whole lot of different cultures in it. And so it's very interesting to try to think of what the identity of Belize is. But it's tropical where we are, and we're happen to live. The house that Dan built on this campus 20 years ago is in the orchard. So the birds come right up close and you may hear the parrots in the background. They're very noisy birds. Toucans, all kinds of wonderful birds here. So I enjoy sitting on the veranda with a book and watching birds when I have a chance. In this German Mennonite community called Spanish Lookout, it's in Western Belize, only men may teach or preach to their church's organization. But then in the United States and elsewhere, there are several other denominations that believe the same way. And I am certain that there are some Quakers in this world yet today who believe that too. So this is kind of a catty statement. If we don't accept the writings of Paul in 1 Corinthians 11 and 14, or in 1 Timothy 2, or in Titus, if we don't accept those verses as truth, we may all be prevented from entering one of the rooms in the great mansion above. So I thank you for this opportunity to speak with you today and hope you don't get in trouble with God for allowing me to share some thoughts about heaven. The topic of heaven after we die has sprouted up around me in multiple times in the last few months. So I've felt led to speak about that this morning. Just what religions believe in life after an earthly death? Do you know? There are several religions whose beliefs include life after death, but not all include heaven. In Buddhism, Hinduism, Sikhism, and a few others, they believe that our spirits are reincarnated, reborn into other bodies in a continuing cycle of existence. I've always heard jokes about what would you like to be reborn as? A panda bear, a dog, a cat, maybe a cat. Some people in the Jewish faith believe in an afterlife where God judges people based on how they lived, but others in Judaism do not believe in an afterlife at all. Jewish scriptures describe God as the God of the living. In Islam, Muslims believe in an afterlife where God judges people on the day of judgment, which is letting them lie in their graves for years or decades until the judgment day comes for all. They stay in their graves until that day when they're brought before Allah and judged on how they live their earthly life. They have the concept that on the day of judgment, people will who die will go to a paradise or a hell, depending on their life actions while they've been on earth. In Christianity, most Christians believe in an afterlife where God judges people and sends them either to heaven or hell. This is most Christians do. They believe that Jesus' death and resurrection make eternal life in heaven possible for those who accept Jesus as their Savior, or as some of us might choose to say, accept him as the Son of God who came to earth as a human to show us how to be part of God's new creation. What happens to those who reject belief in God or Jesus is not clear as clear as some might think. Just a few days before Christmas, Dan and I visited some long-loved friends of his who are a couple, both of who have been science teachers, not just in the U.S., but in South American countries as well. Currently, that couple is dealing with some very difficult issues, only one of which is a terminal lung disease in the man who is depending on the oxygenator constantly in the past few weeks. When we visited them, Dan didn't beat around the bush with his questions. He said, "Ross, do you believe God is in control here?" Ross responded, "Well, I'm not too worried about whether he is in control or not. Basically, it is what it is. And these lungs of mine are going to quit soon, so I'm going to die soon. I don't even know if heaven exists. No one has ever convinced me that they've been there to see it. But I've tried to do my part to help people in this life, and I believe that's what God wanted me to do." So he was happy with that. Well, where do we get our ideas about heaven? Some of our images of heaven are described in hymns. We sing about crossing the Jordan River into the promised land and meeting on that beautiful shore. We sing about angels in robes of white gathering around the throne of God and music being played by harps of gold. The enslaved people years ago sang about sweet chariots being driven by bands of angels sweeping down to carry them up to heaven. And we try to find comfort in imagining our departed loved ones having a great time when they meet their friends and relatives up there in heaven. Our family, I remember, imagined Dad sitting at a table playing euchre with Uncle Bob and Uncle Lowell and laughing so hard that they couldn't tell whose turn it was to play the cards next. And it wasn't all that long ago that Dale and I joked about what meeting each other in heaven would be like. I had asked him, "How will I know you if you aren't wearing the clothes I would recognize? How will my spirit know what your spirit looks like? How do I find you?" Well, one way I understand the Bible is that it has a lot of metaphors and that many people who read it take it too literally. Here's an example. In Matthew 25, in the parable of the sheep and goats, Jesus presents the image of a king, which we assume to mean Jesus, sitting on a throne in heaven on Judgment Day, and all the nations will be gathered around him, it says. The king will put the sheep at his right and the goats at his left. Jesus says those on the right are the ones who are blessed by God, and those on the left are the ones who are cursed. I see that as meaning those who follow Jesus's teaching are those who will spend eternity in heaven, and those who don't follow Jesus's teaching will continue to suffer. But then I have thought that those who reject God or Jesus or the Holy Spirit as part of their lives are already in sort of a misery of hell on their lives here. A few times before I have spoken about N.T. Wright, who may be better known as Tom Wright. He is thought to be one of the most respected theologians of our time. He is an Englishman, a New Testament scholar, a Pauline theologian, and an Anglican bishop. You can search for him and find him easily on the internet and listen to some of his lectures or his sermons or his interviews. Well, when put to the question of the inerrancy of the Bible on a podcast titled Ask N.T. Wright Anything, he says he believes the Bible is the book God wanted us to have, and he wanted us to have it in the way it is. But when it comes to the inerrancy of the Bible, Tom prefers the word trustworthy instead. I like N.T. Wright when I can understand what he's written in his books, because he seems to know what assumptions we have that are unfounded. He seems to know the teachings we have experienced that are on shaky foundation. And he has no fear of saying the answers to the questions he has asked are not straightforward. Well, this week, I've been listening to N.T. Wright for his view about heaven, hell, and life after death. These are a few things he has presented that I hope you can find helpful. The first one is the concept of hell is a medieval concept, and N.T. Wright does not see that the New Testament backs that up. He says rather than thinking there are two possibilities, which are either heaven or hell, we should think in terms of heaven and earth. He says because God created people in his own image, we are meant to stand between heaven and earth to be the image bearers to the people on earth and help God with the new creation brought about by the birth and teachings and resurrection of Jesus. Each of us is meant to stand as a two-way mirror which represents or reflects the present and the future and not the murky and mucky past that existed prior to Jesus. And I think that means, these are my words, I think that prior to Jesus' time on earth and prior to our choice about choosing to believe and follow him, Wright says it is our choice to be a God reflector or not. But when we choose not, there is a possibility of being wasted away, of being lost after our earthly death. But Tom does not call that hell. N.T. Wright, this is a second concept. N.T. Wright says that we need to get away from the sharp separation between heaven and hell and recognize that our earthly life is similar to following a set of signposts that lead us into a fog. He acknowledges it's unclear what's going to happen in the end. The Bible is certainly not clear about what happens at our death. Though Jesus said to the criminal who was hanging on the cross next to him, "I tell you the truth, today you will be with me in paradise," 3 days later, Jesus comes back. That's a little unclear what paradise might mean. N.T. Wright says paradise is the holding place for our souls until God makes up his judgment. Paradise is not just another word for heaven. Third idea. Tom Wright believes God does not have a place for people who love making up lies. He does not have a place for people opposed to truth and who don't seek and follow God's will. God says no to those who reject the goodness of creation and deny God as a creator. He says no to those who want to do their own thing and live their lives in denial of his invitation to walk with him. Fourth concept. N.T. Wright acknowledges that most Christians look forward to being reunited with their loved ones after death. He realizes it is the desire of most of us that when our loved ones die, we can be confident that they will go to heaven. We should want that all people we love will be accepted by God, but Jesus doesn't promise that. Tom suggests we use a prayer such as this when our loved ones pass and we're not sure they're heaven worthy. He says, "Dear God, my life has been bound up with this person. I love her or him, and I know you love her or him as well. Could you please take her and care for her in the best way you can?" Interesting prayer, huh? So with N.T. Wright's help, can we define a clearer path to heaven than those road signs that lead us into the fog? Do we really need to know what becomes of us after our death as long as we live a faithful life on this earth? Are we focused on our own fears of dying more than what we are to do while we are alive on this earth? Are we afraid to die? Does it matter how it turns out if we just take each day at a time to do what we are led to do through study and prayer and learning from the witness of others? A couple of weeks ago, when Jimmy Carter died at the age of 100, you may have seen these words that had been spoken by him. He said, "My faith demands, this is not optional. My faith demands that I do whatever I can, wherever I am, whenever I can, for as long as I can, with whatever I have, to try to make a difference." And these words from Proverbs 3:3-6, "Let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will win favor and a good name in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. I've asked Lynn to play He Lives. You may or may not know the words to it, and I don't have them with me, but the basis is Jesus lives today. He walks with me and talks with me along life's narrow way. I know he lives. He lives within my heart.
come to that point in our worship service where some of you need to go to other responsibilities, and others of you can stay for an additional time of unprogrammed worship. If you are one of those who needs to leave, we wish you Godspeed and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you, Sylvia. It's given me a lot to think about.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sylvia.
Thank you, Sid.
if all hearts are clear, we'll bring our worship to a close. Thank you, Sylvia, for giving us lots to think about.
And He Lives is one of my favorite hymns.
I have one final parting request. Could someone provide me with the meeting address again and the e-connection, just to record it again? Because it got lost.
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking.
Oh,